Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful reception, although I suppose it's not every day that you get to be addressed by a former pretend president. So I can understand. You know, I just realized today one of the big benefits of having played the president is that I have this fantastic spiffy wardrobe of business attire now. Last me forever. So you've heard a lot about the media already tonight. The way I see it is, it all started with the rifleman. Some of you may have had different experiences. This was mine. When I was little, my best friend and I often played rifleman, and I would be Lucas McCain, and she would be my son Mark. It never really occurred to us that this was odd, that there weren't any female role models that we wanted to pretend to be. Like perhaps some of you, I was raised on a steady diet of The Rifleman, Bonanza, both of which have no female characters whatsoever, and are perfect examples of that very strange phenomenon of the dead mother syndrome, which is still so amazingly present even today. Finding Nemo, Beauty and the Beast, it keeps happening. So no role models there. I watched a lot of Star Trek. There was one female character, Lieutenant Uhura, but she was basically a glorified telephone operator. She was, Captain, I'm picking up a signal from the Romulans. So I didn't want to be her. Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie had characters who had really cool superpowers. You would figure we'd want to pretend to be them, but really every episode was about them having to sit on their abilities so as not to piss off their men. So this left me with Gilligan's Island and inevitably Ginger, the movie star. It was fate. I decided early on that that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actor, and the goal never wavered, really. In fact, I majored in acting at BU, which is a great, it's a great idea. That always works out. In fact, I remember the very first class we had was sort of an orientation. There was about 100 kids in the class. And the professor said, I have to be honest with you, you've picked an incredibly difficult profession. In fact, probably only about 1% of you will ever be able to make a living in this field. And I looked around at the class and I thought, oh, these poor kids. However, so far it does seem to be working out, so I'm pleased with that. So with the rare exception of somebody like Sylvester Stallone, who was able to create a vehicle for himself, Rocky, actors only have control of what parts they play through the choices they make about what they're going to accept. From the few parts they're offered, what parts are they going to accept? And initially, all of my choices were purely selfish. They were based on wanting to play the most interesting and complicated characters. I never wanted to just be the girlfriend of the character that was having all the excitement. And I'd say, look, good luck, be careful. Which early on led to some unusual choices. It explains why I was in not one, but two movies with a bug in the title. The Fly and Beetlejuice. And I'm convinced that this is why the producers of Stuart Little wanted to hire me to be Stuart's mother, because I had so much interspecies experience. But everything changed when I was lucky enough to be cast in Thelma and Louise. promise you, none of us, we had no idea what we were making, the reaction that it was going to get. We thought, well, this is, a great script, and it's unusual in that it has two really wonderful parts for women, and, maybe people won't love that we drive off the cliff at the end, but you know what? There's a lot of movies I'd love to make a sequel to. We are pancakes. We're dead. We're flat at the bottom of the Grand. We cannot make a sequel. But thank you for that. Thank you. A prequel. Well, anyway. So anyway, we were totally unprepared for the reaction that the movie got. Like, before the movie came out, for example, if I was at the cleaners or something, somebody might say, "Oh, you know what? I actually loved Earth Girls Are Easy." Or, something like that. After was night and day. Suddenly, women were coming up to me and saying, "That movie changed my life. Oh my God, you have no idea. My girlfriend and I reenacted your trip." Or one time I was parked at a red light, and I heard this wild honking next to me, and it was a car full of women leaning out the windows in the sunroof, going, "Woo-hoo!" And this had not happened to me before. I mean, you may remember when it came out. It was on the cover of Time magazine a week after it came out. There were passionate editorials about, oh my God, what's happened now? Women have guns. We kill a rapist and ourselves. It's not exactly. But if I ever had needed a lesson in the power of media images, I certainly had it now. And the very next movie I made was A League of Their Own, where suddenly, the same phenomenon is happening, but now with 13-year-old girls coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God, that movie changed my life. I play sports because of that movie." So this was a huge 1-2 punch for me. And from then on, I really have tried to make my choices thinking of the women that are going to be watching the films that I make. Hopefully playing characters they can identify with, feel inspired by, and maybe, I hope again someday, say, "Woohoo!" So here's me with all this heightened awareness. I became a mother. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, Alize, who's watching right now, online, and 2-year-old twin boys. So I started watching videos and programs made for really little kids with them a couple of years ago, and I was stunned to see that there was nearly the same gender imbalance now, with notable exceptions like Dora the Explorer, as when I was a kid, as when we were kids. Do you remember the kinds of stuff that they made for us, for kids, in the old days? Let's see if the first animation, of course, was Disney stuff. Minnie Mouse and where is she? I'm pushing the button. Daisy Duck, who didn't really do much at all except ask to go shopping, I think. There were a lot of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, Magilla Gorilla, Wally Gator, George of the Jungle, virtually no female characters. I had a vague recollection that Yogi Bear had a girlfriend, and I searched and searched, and I finally found her, Cindy Bear, as you all remember. Winnie the Pooh has been around for a long time and still is. Has 9 characters, and one of them is female Kanga. I couldn't find a picture on the internet of her alone without Roo in her pocket. And if you think about it, really, isn't she sort of half a character? Kanga, Roo. You know, she doesn't do things on her own, really. On the Looney Tunes website, they list 12 characters, and only one of them is female, but it's the great one. It's the one you all love and remember the best. Granny. She's the one who owns Tweety, and she has to leave so that the story can happen. Now, we all know that kids get a very strong message about body image from the media. 78% of senior girls say they don't like their bodies. A third of third graders have been on a diet. Which leads me to this question. Is Judy Jetson too thin? I think her waist is the same size as her neck in that picture, if I'm not wrong. No, I can see you. I saw you for a second, and then you went away. So a lot of kids' fare from back then and even now shows highly stereotyped, sexualized female characters, even in programs made for the youngest kids. For example, did you know Miss Piggy had cleavage? But by far, my absolute favorite is the Smurfs. You remember the Smurfs? Smurfette. This was fairly recent. This was like from the 80s, 1980 to 1990. The website explains that there were 100 Smurfs, and originally there were no female Smurfs. Not sure how that happened. But eventually they added Smurfette, and this is how she originally looked. They describe her as having stringy hair and ugly eyelashes. She was created by an evil wizard to destroy the Smurfs. But then, I'm not kidding, Papa Smurf, after a successful operation of plastic smurfery, turned her into the blonde bombshell that we all know and love. And it notes that after her appearance improved, the Smurfs accepted and loved her. Okay. So here I am, a couple of years back. I'm watching these shows and movies with my daughter, and I'm counting on my fingers the number of male characters and female characters. And I soon run out of fingers on my left hand, and I decide I'd like to do something about this because I really feel like people aren't aware and it's not being addressed. I'm a trustee of the Women's Sports Foundation, so I called my friend Donna Lopiano, the director there, and many of you will find this funny. I said, how do you start a foundation anyway? And she said, well, don't. Don't start a foundation. It's too hard. But try to find one that has similar goals as you, and you could make a program with them. So she introduced me to Dads and Daughters, which is a great national nonprofit organization. Works to improve images of girls in the media, and together we founded See Jane. The very first thing we did was to raise enough funds to sponsor the largest content analysis study ever done of G-rated movies. This was at Annenberg School for Communication, because we thought without the hard facts, it's going to be hard to convince people. We don't want to go in to the people who make these programs and movies and say, our impression is that there are fewer female characters. We wanted the results and the data, and the results were stunning, in fact. 3 out of 4 characters in G-rated movies are male. We studied the top 100 movies released from 1990 to 2005. Of characters shown in groups, only 17% were female. And of the few female characters that were in these movies, most of them were highly stereotyped. And by the way, during this 15-year period, there was 0 improvement as far as the percentage of female characters. So you have to think, what message is our culture still sending to kids? That women and girls are worth less, and their worth is different than men and boys. What if partly because the media children are seeing from the very beginning, programming that's aimed at our very youngest kids, have this huge imbalance? It's affecting them when they're adults. I'd like to find out. So armed with our study, we've had meetings with studio executives and entities that make movies and television programs for kids. And we've had a very positive response, and in fact, a lot of jaw-dropping. These people, just like an average viewer who really perhaps doesn't notice this, they were not aware of this gender disparity in the product that they're putting out. And they were thunderstruck, in fact, to hear this data. We've also finished the most comprehensive study of TV programs aimed at children. We'll be releasing that soon. And we've moved on to studying PG and PG-13 movies, and they promise some really startling results. So our goal at CJane is to dramatically increase the percentage of female characters and reduce gender stereotyping. In media that's made for kids 11 and under. And we're going to do it through working with the industry in a collegial way and sharing our information with them, and through a public education campaign. Because frankly, my dream is in 5 years that if a movie came out that had only 1 female character, every reviewer would notice, and every parent would notice and say, what the hell is going on here? We've got to start noticing the absence of girls in our childhood entertainments and how it affects us to feel that much less valuable as a female and that much less valuing of females as a male. Children spend more time, you may know this, watching TV than any other activity except sleeping. And most kids watch a full video every day. I'd love for all of us to look with new eyes at the media that's made for kids, watch with our kids, and point out what we see. I try to do this with my daughter. I say, why can't that character be a girl? Which character would you rather be? And believe me, she'd rather be Mulan than a lot of other characters. So you've heard here a little bit about how much I care about women's images in the media. Imagine how I felt when I got a call saying, would I like to consider playing the first female president of the United States? I thought, my life is perfect. It was just a dream come true. It was really an incredible experience. And now I can never act again. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I can't. Anything else would be a step down. Is there a movie about the Queen of the Universe or something? I don't know what to do. But speaking of women in politics, I read that in the New York Times Magazine in 1999, they figured out that if women were added to Congress at the rate that they had been, we would achieve parity in 500 years. Personally, I think it's too slow. I'd like to cut it right in half, only 250 years. Another interesting statistic that stunned me is that America is 68th in the world as far as female representation in government. This is pretty pathetic. So what if seeing a female character in the Oval Office commanding the troops helped just that much for people to accept the real thing? Actually, we know the answer to that. Kaplan-Thaler did a little study about that and found that people who watched Commander-in-Chief were 58% more likely to say that they would vote for a female president. What if getting accustomed to hearing the words, Madam Speaker, starts to move things along faster? I think it will. With the impact that we know the media has, if we change the worlds that kids see in the media aimed at them from the very beginning, so that the monsters and toys and fish and dinosaurs and talking toaster ovens are all roughly half female, maybe they will grow up to think differently. I think they will, and I'd like to find that out, and I am determined to find that out. Thank you very much.